For thousands of years, the story of the Nephilim has remained one of the most mysterious and debated accounts from the ancient world. Were they real beings? Were they legendary warriors? Were they symbols of human corruption and pride? Or were they something far more mysterious, a connection between the spiritual world and humanity? The answer depends on how we understand ancient traditions. But regardless of interpretation, the story of the Nephilim has survived because it speaks to questions that are still relevant today. Questions about power. Questions about knowledge. Questions about human ambition. And perhaps the greatest question of all: what happens when humanity gains abilities greater than its wisdom? The ancient world believed that humanity once crossed a dangerous boundary. A boundary between the natural and supernatural. Between what humans were meant to know and what they were not ready to understand. The story of the Nephilim became a warning about the consequences of that crossing. But as history moved forward, the idea of the Nephilim changed. They were no longer only remembered as ancient giants. They became symbols. Symbols of corruption. Symbols of rebellion. Symbols of forces that oppose the proper order of creation. In many religious traditions, the story became connected with the struggle between good and evil. The focus moved away from the question, were the Nephilim physically real? And toward a deeper question, what do they represent? The ancient writers were often less concerned with scientific explanations and more concerned with spiritual lessons. They wanted people to understand something about human nature. Throughout history, humanity has repeatedly faced the same temptation. The desire to become powerful without becoming wise. The desire to gain knowledge without accepting responsibility. The desire to control everything while ignoring the consequences. This pattern can be seen in every era. Ancient kings built massive empires and declared themselves almost divine. They conquered nations and collected unimaginable wealth. But eventually, their kingdoms collapsed. The monuments they built remained, but the rulers themselves disappeared. The same lesson appears again and again: human power is temporary. No empire lasts forever. No ruler escapes time. No civilization can survive if it loses its moral foundation. This is one of the central messages hidden inside the Nephilim story. The problem was never simply strength. The problem was pride. The problem was believing that power gives someone the right to do anything. The ancient world understood that knowledge and power were dangerous when separated from wisdom. And this idea has become even more relevant in the modern age. Today, humanity possesses abilities that ancient people could never have imagined. We can communicate instantly across the planet. We can manipulate genetics. We can create artificial intelligence. We can explore the deepest parts of space. Our knowledge has expanded beyond anything previous generations experienced. But the ancient warning remains: can our wisdom grow as quickly as our abilities? Because history shows that advancement alone does not guarantee a better world. A civilization can become technologically powerful while becoming morally weak. It can create amazing achievements while also creating destruction. The same human creativity that builds hospitals can create weapons. The same technology that connects people can also spread deception. The same knowledge that can improve life can also be misused. The ancient stories were not warning humanity against learning. They were warning humanity against learning without responsibility. This is why the Nephilim tradition continues to attract attention. It is not only about ancient mysteries. It is about the human condition. It asks us to examine ourselves. Are we becoming wiser as we become more powerful? Are we becoming more responsible as we gain more knowledge? Or are we repeating the same mistakes that ancient civilizations warned about? Another fascinating part of the Nephilim tradition is the idea that their influence continued after their physical existence disappeared. Ancient texts often describe evil not only as a physical force but as an influence, a pattern of thinking, a temptation, a desire that spreads from generation to generation. In this sense, the spirit of the Nephilim represents something much larger than a group of ancient beings. It represents the ongoing human struggle between humility and pride, between wisdom and arrogance, between creation and destruction. The ancient world understood that the greatest battles were not always fought with weapons. The greatest battles were fought inside the human heart. A person's choices could determine the future of entire civilizations. A leader's pride could destroy millions. A society's values could determine whether it flourished or collapsed. This is why ancient stories survived. They were not preserved only because they were entertaining. They were preserved because they carried warnings. Warnings about mistakes that humanity has repeated throughout history. The Nephilim story also reveals something interesting about ancient people. They were fascinated by the unknown. They looked at the world around them and asked questions. Where did knowledge come from? Why does evil exist? Why do powerful civilizations rise and fall? What existed before recorded history? These are questions modern people still ask today. The tools may have changed. Science has given us new ways to investigate the past. Archaeology has revealed forgotten civilizations. Technology has allowed us to study ancient texts in greater detail. But the fundamental questions remain the same. Who are we? Where did we come from? And what is the purpose of human existence? Perhaps this is why the story of the Nephilim continues to fascinate people thousands of years later. It sits at the intersection of history and mystery, between what we know and what we cannot fully explain, between ancient writings and modern questions. The Nephilim represent a forgotten world. A world of ancient civilizations, legendary warriors, mysterious beings, and lost knowledge. But more importantly, they represent a warning that applies to every generation. Humanity's greatest challenge has never been gaining power. It has been learning how to use power correctly. The flood story, the legends of giants, and the traditions surrounding the Nephilim all point toward the same message. A civilization is not measured only by what it can build. It is measured by what it values. It is measured by how it treats others. It is measured by whether its wisdom can match its strength. The ancient world looked back at the age before the flood and saw a civilization that had become powerful but had lost its way. A civilization that achieved greatness but failed to control its own desires. And perhaps that is why the story survived. Because every generation faces the same choice. Will knowledge make us wiser? Will power make us more responsible? Will progress bring humanity closer together? Or will we repeat the mistakes of the past? The mystery of the Nephilim may never be completely solved. Some see them as literal giants. Some see them as ancient warriors. Some see them as symbolic figures representing humanity's darkest tendencies. But no matter how we interpret them, the lesson remains powerful. The greatest danger facing humanity does not come from what exists outside us. It comes from what exists within us. Our ambition, our pride, our desire for control, and our constant struggle to use great power with great wisdom. The story of the Nephilim is not only a story about the ancient past. It is a story about the present. And perhaps, more importantly, it is a story about the future. Because the question that began thousands of years ago is still the same today. When humanity reaches for greater knowledge and greater power, will we also gain the wisdom needed to handle it? That may be the greatest mystery of all.